we're humming. I mean, we're just humming, and this, what should happen is happening right now. The economy is really running good steam, full steam ahead.
White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow practically giddy about today's other big news, the unemployment rate hitting 3.7%. That is the lowest level since December 1969. To put that in a little perspective, this song had just hit #1 on the Billboard chart.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again.
And my next guest probably celebrated his 16th birthday around then. Bill Bennett, host of the Bill Bennett podcast, former education secretary, Fox News contributor. And I should say, in the interest of full disclosure, he has been kind enough to invite me on the podcast, and I think we're going to do it next week. Thank you, sir.
That's right.
And
yes, sir. Peter, Paul, and Mary, I went to see them in concert. Yes, indeed.
I tried to shave a few years off your age. I'm trying to be generous. Talk about the economy.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Nobody really wants to give the president that much credit right now, but Brett Kavanaugh, we should note, is somebody, they didn't talk a lot about his decisions, about 300 of them as a federal judge. Some of those decisions he's been very aggressive about, saying we need to cut government regulations, something the president's already done and has helped unleash this economy.
No, sure, he deserves credit for it. And, you know, and I love Senator Kennedy, who was on earlier, but I disagree with him. He's very quotable, and I usually agree, but there were winners in this. It was bloody. It was like a war, but there are winners. And Donald Trump is one of the winners. This was his nominee. This will be a great achievement. Brett Kavanaugh, though bloodied, unbeaten, and prevailed. Mitch McConnell did an excellent job. The star of the show, I think, was Susan Collins. And that needs to be considered for a minute, because although a lot of conservatives don't like her, I've known her for a long time and like her. She is not ideological, but she is principled, and she is thorough, and she's a procedural regular, and she was a winner. Most important, the American people were winners. If this had prevailed the other way, if this had gone the other way, we would have exalted some notions, like if you disagree with someone, you can destroy them. And you should assume the worst of a person if an accusation comes up. Bill, that would have been much worse. So there are winners. It was a tough row, but
On that point, some tried to destroy Brett Kavanaugh. Now maybe they're going to try to destroy Susan Collins. I noticed, and I've got a quick quote here, the Women's March, a lot of folks on the left who get votes from Susan Collins oftentimes, they're going after her tonight. Senator Susan Collins is the mother and grandmother of white women in America who gave us a Donald Trump presidency, the 53%. She is a disgrace, and her legacy will be that she was a traitor to women and marginalized communities. History, they say, will not treat her kindly. That's Linda Sessor from the Women's March. What say you, sir?
Yeah, what I say is what was said to Joe McCarthy. Ladies, have you no shame? Really, how about just a little quiet, just a little recognition that someone searched her conscience, searched the record, and did the right thing? I hope she's safe up there. There's some crazy people up there in Maine, and I hope people watch out for her and watch out for her. She did a good and brave thing today, and she should be thanked for it. But, you know, this is what I'm worried about, Ed.
Yeah.
Go ahead, is what happens in the future.
Sure.
Because this isn't over. This was one battle, but we're in a war. We're in a big culture war.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt. I want to build on what you're saying, because I listened closely to get the Democratic perspective. Chuck Schumer today was saying, look, Mr. President, please send us someone else. I know it'll be right of center, but we'll give them a fair shot. And I thought, well, wait a second. Schumer was against Brett Kavanaugh before the sexual assault allegations. And in fact, listen to Susan Collins. Here's what she said.
The president nominated Brett Kavanaugh on July 9th. Within moments of that announcement, a number of senators joined the race to announce their opposition, but they were beaten to the punch by one of our colleagues who actually announced opposition before the nominee's identity was even known.
And in fact, Schumer said, I oppose Judge Kavanaugh that very night with everything I have.
That's right. That's right. And again, this is not an ideological person, Susan Collins, but she's a procedural regular, and you could tell if you watched her remarks, she was about as exercised on that point as any. They were opposed before they had a name to fill in on the blank. I'm worried about the future, Ed. because I think we now have a situation where a good chunk of the country believes that we have an illegitimate member of the Supreme Court. I heard a couple people say we have two illegitimate members of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, or soon will.
Yeah.
What will that mean? What will people take out of decisions then? Will people say because they are illegitimate, the rulings of the court are not legitimate? Or will people say, well, he certainly can't rule on anything related to politics since he showed us his political views? This thing will go on until people on the left develop some sense of shame and embarrassment.
Bill Bennett, a man of big ideas and still a very young man, we want to point out, host of the Bill Bennett podcast. Looking forward to doing it, sir. Thanks for coming in.